Howdy. What's going on, y'all? Getting ready to go live with one of the heroes, a person that made my childhood very great. Somebody who still makes my consumption of creatures and super dope armor very great. Bon Bon Cafecito, my brother. How you doing? I miss you, man. I miss you. It's not the same without you. It's not the same. Rashad, what's going on? Just getting a couple things ready. I'm sorry about the glare, y'all. I just, you know, my eyes with these glares, all of the video games, all of the 4K TV, um, nice. Just chilling. Yeah, you've been getting busy. You deserve to just chill. Nice. Uh-oh.
Hey, hey, hey. Sorry about that.
Hey, hey,
Good, good, good.
Steve, how you doing? It's okay. It's just 3 o'clock. we
I'm
got
good. How are
perfect.
you?
How are you?
Just
Good, good.
okay.
Sorry about the
That's okay. You know,
glare.
my backdrop is going to be a little bit bright too because there's just my window back here. You can see there's just some light coming through, but hopefully I'll just stay in front of it.
Hmm.
So how you been?
Okay. Good, good. I've been super busy, heads down, multiple creatures, and then getting ready for the aliens
Hmm.
exhibit, which I told you about. So I've been every day I've been just been trying to like lay a brick, just trying to get to this process where I'm like able to see everything like in front of me finally because I've been planning it out for so long. So now that we have the big queen that we're working on, it's like okay, I can finally see it now.
That,
But good. It's
that's good.
very
Sounds
good. How
exciting.
about you?
Yeah, we've been kind of busy. It was this last year was a little slow after April for us. Like the whole industry just kind of slowed down
Hmm.
quite a bit. So we've just been doing a lot of like non-industry type stuff on the side, and then now it's starting to pick up again. So we've been doing a lot of little projects, but just a ton of them. And we're
Hmm.
we're waiting to hear back from a couple of big projects and which of course none of this I can talk about because of our NDAs.
Oh no,
Yeah,
no.
because of our
I know
NDAs.
how it goes.
But yeah, some exciting stuff. I'm doing the project for a studio that I can't talk about for something that's not coming up for another couple of years. But it's going to be really cool,
Hmm.
really fun. We're in like right in the middle of it, you know. So yeah, it's all kind of building up. So
Nice. Yeah, I know how to, and especially with the NDAs, like I got one myself, and I'm not even sure like what I'm gonna be
hmm
working on just yet. So it's just one of those things where I'm trying to budget my time efficiently. So it's like, okay, I know that at any moment they might want to see something or might need a concept, or so I'm just trying
yeah,
to like plan for the future at the same time. So I know exactly how it goes. But this is it's been a long time coming. Um, you already know how big of a fan I am of your like lifetime of work and your style and what you're doing with the Onyx Forge and Elite Creature
well,
collectibles and
thank you
just
so
everything
much.
you do. Pretty much like no problem. It pretty much helped me create the style that I have today, which is that super hyper. I try to be hyper realistic and use nature to my advantage like you in a lot of ways. And for the people from my side of the world on Instagram, um, Predator, Guyver, the list goes on and on as far as what Steve has created that's inspired us all. And if you've seen a modern creature today or a monster today, whoever created it in some way, form, or fashion was inspired by Steve Wang. And so this is literally like a young shooting guard being able to talk to Michael Jordan right now. So it's an honor to have you on Sunday
Well,
Scaries
thank you so
and
much for
hang out
having
with
me. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the kind words. I'm just a guy that's like pushing clay and just doing what I love. And, the fact that I can inspire a lot of people in this generation, much like the generations before me that inspired me, it's great, just it's like just being able to give back to what I received as a kid from all the masters before me. So it's pretty awesome.
Of course, of course. And I always want to make sure that we give you your love, because a lot of times, when people aren't here anymore, you hear all these great things about them. But I always make it my mission to show love and to give you your flowers and let you know how much you inspire us today while you're here. So that's one of the first things I wanted to do. But I know a lot of you all are already familiar with Steve's work, but I do want to give them just a little bit of backstory of how you got started on your journey. So I forget what was it, like eight
Yeah,
or nine when you came
I was about
over
nine
to
and a half
Taiwan?
when I came over. Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
immigrated from Taiwan in 1975. And I before I came over, I was doing a lot of drawings. I was already completely fascinated by anything that was fantasy, like Monkey King and all the mythology and stuff. But then on top of that
Mm-hmm.
too, by that time, I had seen my first Ultraman movie, and it blew my mind. Like I was like, "Holy crap! What
Mm-hmm.
is this guy, the silver guy with the red suit?" And yeah, and that
Oh
that
yes.
that literally changed my life. I just kind of knew at that point, like, I don't know what this is. I just know somehow I will have to be involved with something like this in the future, not knowing anything about it. So when I came to the U.S., it was around a late summer, so Halloween came up pretty quickly. And I didn't know what Halloween was at the time. I went to the shopping mall with my grandmother, and there was all these amazing latex masks, like from Don Post Studios, the Be Something Studios, like there's all these amazing masks there. And I just like had to have one. So my grandma bought me one. She bought me this really terrible like gorilla mask, but and it had those dolls that have like the sewn in hair. Yeah, it was like the worst, but I loved that thing so much that I've been trying to find one forever. But I've only seen photos. Like that thing's just not around anymore, just for nostalgia's sake. But so from that point on, I became obsessed and I started collecting masks for about 4 years. And during that time, it was just like it just wasn't enough for me. At that point, like movies like The Howling was coming out. The Thing was coming out. I mean, not yet, but was starting to like a couple years in the future was going to come out. And so I really had to know how to do it. And I started going into the library searching for theatrical books to just see how, like, oh, you got to start with sculpture, you got to start with do mold and all that stuff. And it wasn't until a magazine like Cinemagic came out with this great tutorial by Kirk Brady about making latex
Mm-hmm.
mask. There's one by Craig Reardon, who I just saw about a month ago. He's one of my idols, and Craig did this beautiful article on how to do latex appliances. He did this pan character with the horns, and just beautiful, beautiful work. And so it really inspired me because these tutorials show me how to do it. So I was in my garage making masks and stuff as a kid, and just starting high school. Eventually, I made a bunch of stuff, and I met my good friend Matt Rose, who passed away about 4 years ago. And he was like 5 years ahead of me. He was so
Mm.
good. So we joined together and had a mask company for about a year, and then moved down to LA. That's how my career started here. Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, because I remember from other um interviews, how you came over and like Halloween, and I know King Kong was one of the things that
Hmm.
inspired you a lot too,
Yeah.
early on, just seeing that. And I think similar for me, obviously more so in the future. I'm a young kid, but it is just like that Channel 7 Jurassic Park feature that they had when they showed Stan Winston and the crew, like how they was testing out the raptor suit. And once I saw that people were actually making these things, it was just different because I always grew up loving dinosaurs, but just seeing that,
Mhm.
like, hey, this is an actual job. Like, there's a crew of people bringing this to life. Just changed it. It changed the game for me, and not so much later. Around like actually around 2017, 2018 is when I really got the idea as far as like starting to really, do costumes. I didn't know what cosplay was. I just know I like to make cool stuff. Had a lot of action figures. I was reading comic books, but I was always into monsters, and that's one of the things that came out in me. Uh, just until recently, like 2019, 2020, that's when I really started to really embrace who I am as a person and how I say embrace being a monster. But that was really me finding out who I was. Yeah. So every time I have an interview, every time I'm on an article or anybody, your name always comes up as one of the main artists who helped me cultivate my style. Kind of like we said in the opening. So how would you describe your style? Because I'm now just getting to a point as an artist where it's like I could kind of define what I'm doing, but I always kind of use like say, for example, you or Stan Winston as somebody to compare it to. So, how would you
Uh,
describe your
um,
style?
wow. I don't know. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I am interested in so many different things. And of course, starting out early in my career, having done a lot of makeup and creatures and stuff, that certainly was a huge, huge driving point for me to want to be a monster maker. So I guess first and foremost, I'm a monster maker. Um, and then
Mm-hmm.
then I got into like wanting to make movies. I made my first little Super 8 short film, and I was bit by the film bug. So while I was there making Gremlins 2, I was also on the side planning to make my first low budget Super 8 feature called Kung Fu Rascals. And so it's really weird
Mm-hmm.
to and this to me is kind of a gift. If you can be inspired by one thing in your life, like to have a passion for something, just one thing in your life, you're blessed because you're always going to chase that passion, and that's something that keeps
Mm-hmm.
life exciting. For me to have two, discovery filmmaking later, in my early 20s, um, that was really another gift, and with all these gifts, it comes a lot of pain. Anybody can tell you if you're an artist of any kind, there's just a lot of pain you're gonna have to go through to try to make your dream a reality. That discourages a lot of people, but I think it's more if you can stay with it, if you can be true to yourself, to your passion, do whatever you can to try to achieve it because it's worth it if you can do it, even for a little while. So anyway,
Oh
so I
yes.
started writing stuff, and I found like writing partners to write stuff with. I started producing my own films. I worked on Scream at George invited me to co-direct the first Guyver movie, and then I ended up producing and directing the
Mm-hmm.
second movie myself with my producers. Then eventually I went on to direct more movies like Drive, and then I went on to become a showrunner for Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, which was a big job for me because no one in their right mind would ever give me a job like that. It's just because of my connections with people I've worked with before who believe in what I did and gave me the opportunity. Because I don't know if you know what a showrunner is for a TV series, but basically a showrunner is the person in charge of everything creative. Like they're essentially the executive producer of the show, and they're in charge of like the scripts. They're in charge of like
Mm-hmm.
putting a team together to produce the show. They direct, or they hire directors. They're involved in every aspect of the show, which is what I did. I wore like so many hats, from editing to visual effects, art direction, to sound mixes, to delivery items. I mean, everything across the board. Me and my team like did all that. So it was a huge responsibility, and so I guess I'm a film director producer as well. It's been a while, but I got to do a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff as well. And then when I got my studio, I started making giant like statues, for video game companies. And then the last big thing we did was that Miami Bull for the city of Miami. Yeah, that thing,
Oh
was a
yes.
hell of a
Oh
challenge. We
yeah.
had 4 months from beginning to end to build that from scratch. 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was, and then we all caught
Oh,
COVID. Half the shop caught COVID, including myself. I was out for 2 weeks in the middle of this short schedule. I mean, it
oh
was
man.
nuts. For the first time in my life, I thought, well, maybe for the second time in my life, I thought we are not going to get this thing done on time, and it had to be done no matter what. We had to ship this thing out to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
fly out there. install it so the mayor of Miami can unveil this thing, And we did it, we did it, and it turned out really
Yeah.
cool, and I'm very proud of it. Everybody's very happy with it. So yeah, so we build big things. I feel like we can build more or less anything as long as it's not like automobile, like functioning automobiles, or like yeah, like really high
Yeah.
science type stuff. Like I think we're like over glorified prop makers maybe. So yeah, so I like to just do everything. I mean, for me, it's just a challenge. When we get hit with something new and different, I get excited. I'm like, wow, I don't know how to do this, but let's figure it out. Let's bid on this. If we get it, let's figure it out, and we always do. So it's fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny that you recall the Miami Bull, because I remember when it was unveiled, I was seeing it on everybody's timeline. Like, people were taking pictures with it, and I'm like, oh, Steve, that's
Yeah,
what's up. That's what's up. And that's good. That's so dope, because it was just it's so massive yet so detailed, and like all like the little intricate shiny parts of it was just
thank you,
it was
thank
so
you.
good, so good. If I ever get a chance to get down there, I
Yeah,
definitely want to see it in
yeah. It's
person,
at
just
the
take some
Miami-Dade
pictures with it.
College, right on the corner of the
And
street
one
corner. It's like out in the open, so anybody can go see it. Yeah.
nice, nice. And one of the other things that really inspired kind of a lot of this exhibit that's coming up at in April for C2E2 was the work you did with Blizzard. I forgot the name of the character. I think he was
hmm
one of
Oh,
the ogres.
it was Art. No, wait, Gramash. He's yeah, Gramash.
Gramash. Yes. Yes. That project really inspired me, as far as being able to bring something to life that from a video game or a movie. But I really kept watching that YouTube video over and over again, just to see the different posings and the different techniques that you guys use to actually bring it to life, because it looks like at any second he could just come to life and just like go to town on a whole convention, or everybody. So that's one of the things that really inspired this big queen that's coming up in April, just to kind of give audiences that feeling of this is my
Yeah,
first time seeing an alien. I've never been in an alien hive before, but this is your
yeah.
first time experiencing it. So I was studying that video over and over again, just to see how you guys got the skill right. Now,
Sure.
obviously, different characters, right? But still, that same feeling, because you want the audience to feel. You just want to take them out of the
hmm
convention and just have them focus on that. And I think that's one of the things that inspired me the most
Yeah, thank you.
about
Yeah,
that
I mean,
Gramage.
it's a lot of that stuff is all about
So,
storytelling. You're capturing a moment in that character's life,
mm-hmm,
and so you try to catch a moment that's like really powerful, so that there's a lot of engagement with the audience. I mean, from all the way from how we plan the height of the character, so that there's a certain amount of eye contact, and all the statues that we do. We primarily focus on how do we engage the audience, so when they first see this thing, they feel a connection with it. And so a that's always a lot of fun to
oh yeah,
figure out. And then if we could, like, not so much with the Blizzard stuff, with the exception of Tyrael, which is that the flying angel. Um, a lot of the statues we've done
mm-hmm,
for Riot Games too, we get to defy gravity a bit, which is always fun and challenging. Because when you can make something look like they're almost ready to leap off of something, and they're kind of off balance, but they're so beautifully composed. The character, the female character Da Chow that we did for the Tencent video game Honor of Kings. Yeah, that whole
I
thing,
remember
that
that.
she's literally
Mm-hmm.
balancing a 1 inch square of steel, and she's leaning forward. She's holding the 6 foot staff. Her hair is 6 feet. There's all this weight all over. Everything is balanced around that 1 inch of steel right by her instep of her foot. So being able to like work out the logistics of that, figure it all out, do it, and make it look beautiful is like that's always really fun for us to do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's a lot of the. I don't know how to describe. That's a lot of. I want to say like thankless work, because we get so caught up in the paint job and the details, and when it comes to the actual base and how things look. that's where I spend a lot of my time, just trying to think logistically, like
Mm-hmm.
how is this going to work? Like, how am I going to get this out of my garage to a convention and be able to like have this stand
Yeah.
up for like 3 or 4 days straight? So I was really very inspired by that, and it really does look like she's
Mm-hmm.
just floating in midair.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's so dope. So yeah, no problem, no problem. So the next question I have
Mm-hmm.
you, and I know this one might be a doozy, right? Because just looking at your your IBD, um, literally I could see my entire childhood like in a row, from Predator on up to even the stuff that you did from Underworld, Guyver 2. That was my favorite, by the way. Um, and to even what you did for the Bat Creature in Batman v Superman. Um, Short, but it was beautifully done. Beautifully done. And that's exactly how I would expect Man Bat or the Bat
Mm-hmm.
Creature, however they want to call it, to look in that world. So is there any movies that you saw come out like around your time, right? That you either wish you could have worked on or you
Mm.
either passed up?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You leaving? Sorry. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you could
Well, I
say.
mean, yeah, definitely. Um, the original Creature from the Black Lagoon really inspired me, changed my life. And not that I wish I could have worked on it, because obviously, everything about it that was done by the people that did it made it what it was. So I that's one I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
have been a little fly on the wall, just to be on set and just watch them work and just see it all come together. That would have been amazing. Actually, a film that I really enjoyed a lot, and Guillermo did ask me to work on it, and I was so busy on 3 different projects and running my studio that I couldn't, because he wanted me to go work out of his house, and I just couldn't. But he didn't tell me what it was, so I had to pass on it, and it turned out to be The Shape of Water, which was it's a beautiful film, and it was one that I kind of wish I could have been involved with to some degree, and I was a little bit. At the end, Guillermo did ask me to come in to consult a little bit on a small aspect of it, and I did, and he appreciated that. He gave me a special thanks credit. But had I known what it was, I don't know. I wish I could have been a little bit more involved with it. But again, everybody on that, Mike Hill, and Legacy, and everybody involved did such a beautiful job on it. It was more one of those things where, like, yeah, it would have been nice if I was, could have helped on it somehow, a little bit more. So, yeah, because I just love that film so
Mm-hmm.
much. And then this other one is kind of tricky for me because, like, I've always been a huge Star Wars fan, like since I was a kid, right? I saw Star Wars in the theaters
Mm-hmm.
when it came out, for the first time, and so everything about Star Wars I just love. I don't listen to the haters. Even the movies aren't great. It's like, okay, fine. Like it could be better. So what? I do love Star Wars. So I would like to work on something Star Wars. And actually, I just remember I kind of did. I worked on something that I can't
Mm.
really talk about, but it was an animated thing, and I got to design some character for that, which was actually used. But then the whole episode was canceled due to politics, which was unfortunate. But the people that did that
Mm.
I helped out on, my friends, they have a new thing coming out for that same show, season 2, because Disney loved what they did. It was just the episode itself. They didn't direct it or anything. It was like a thing where it was just a very tricky subject matter for Star Wars to deal with. So they ended up playing it safe and not. So I almost kind of got to
Mm-hmm.
work on something that was seen in the Star Wars, galaxy. So maybe someday I might like to work on
Mm-hmm.
a Star Wars something. But I'm happy. I'm completely
Oh
happy with just being a fan.
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I definitely, now that you mentioned that, I'm surprised that you haven't, because it's just so
Yeah.
creature heavy, you know. I'm surprised that you haven't. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah. I
up.
mean, I mean,
And
well, the thing about Star
I
Wars
got this one.
creatures too is like Star Wars creatures and my style is completely like different world. Like I don't think like Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
so much. In fact, when I was designing characters for this animated thing, I really kind of had to open my brain and figure out, okay, what makes Star Wars Star Wars? And I kind of surprised myself. I designed like, I did at least like 20 different designs on that thing, all completely different. You know, and I think some of it really did fit the Star Wars universe. So yeah, you never know. It's very weird. It's a very specific look in Star Wars, right? Yeah, yeah.
It really is. It really is. And one of the creatures, I think I shared a little bit about it, that I'm working on for this film called John Cooley's Convergence. I was looking at a lot of the creatures in the Star Wars universe, specifically the cantina scene, just to kind of think of, the day in the life of like a regular like alien bounty hunter. Like, what do they do? Like, what do they do afterward? How do they wind down? Just things like that. And I came up with this weird lizard creature that he kind of resembles me and one of my pet lizards almost. And just like with this Mortal Kombat armor, it's weird. I'll show you. I haven't posted it yet, mainly because you're trying to keep things on a hush. But you can definitely see a little bit of your inspiration in there as far as like the details in the face and such. Still got some ways to go, and I also got to wear it, so I still got a lot of testing to do too. So I'll be getting my my creature suit work done as far as being the actor in the suit finally.
That's
so
cool. Yeah,
it'll be dope.
Yeah, I've worn a bunch of creature stuff in my
So
days. I think probably one of the most intense one I wore is the movie Arena. Have you seen that? It was by Paul Satterfield was in it.
who's in
Claudia
that one?
Christian. She was in Babylon 5. Look it up. It's called Arena. It came out in I
Okay,
think
okay,
1988 or 89, and it's basically Rocky in space. It's
okay.
made by Empire Pictures, so it's kind of low budget, a little bit cheesy. But there's a creature in it called Sloth that Screaming Mad George designed that I helped him build. Yeah, yeah.
I
And then
know
so
Sloth.
I
Yep.
played Sloth, and that was crazy. That one nearly killed me. It was just so heavy, and I had to carry all the weight on my back at an angle. So it was like 50 pounds on my back and nothing holding me other than myself. And then the jaw was actuated
Mhm.
by my neck movement. So I couldn't see half the time. So I had to choreograph this fight with Paul Satterfield, and I did kind of Wing Chun techniques. And so I would practice it with him until he got it. And by the time he got it, I could do it completely with my eyes closed. So I performed that creature mostly with my eyes closed because I just couldn't see. Um, yeah, and that was a fun experience. I mean, it was
Mm.
crazy, to go to Italy and experience that whole end of how crazy things are. But it was fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's another great thing to bring up. I mean, just coming from like the area, started off doing cosplay. Now I'm working more onto the TV and movie side. One of the things that I don't think, as the creator, I always try to keep in mind how demanding the movements are going to be, especially, working with EVA foam and upholstery foam, temperatures, being hot, all of that stuff that you just not being able to see, that's one of the big things. So I try
Yeah.
to keep that stuff in mind now. What's one of the most demanding creatures you ever created that you had to put an
Demanding
actor in?
creatures. Um, Gosh, I think they're all demanding in their own ways. One thing that I remember, that one creature that I built for Patrick the Topless, it was the cave. That creature was built very unconventionally
Mm.
because throughout my career, when I was making, I really loved making creature suits because I was obsessed since I was a kid about them. So I wanted to try different things, and I seen like creatures with like big frames, built. They try to build them very lightly, and they use like under frames. They put skin on top, and from a practical perspective, it's cool to keep all that into consideration for movement and for whatever. But the biggest problem we have is that the materials we have to put on top of all that beautiful framework is that it just doesn't move very well. Or like the foam latex, you put a thin skin, it starts to
Mm-hmm.
buckle like a sheet of foam, and it just doesn't move naturally. So knowing that, I
Yeah.
started to kind of come up with my own techniques of how to make foam latex behave, if you will. Um, so I started putting like compression springs like in thick areas of foam, like on the Underworld Werewolf. The necks were so thick, if you bend it, the foam would literally buckle like
Not.
this, and it looked like a
Yeah.
big piece of rubber. So I started embedding compression springs inside them. So now instead of like buckling like this, the foam will only do this. It will literally always bend like this. And yeah, exactly.
Like a real
It
neck.
doesn't. There's no way for it to collapse on itself. So you tell the foam how to behave. I came up with the idea of doing like armor plates underneath, like hard latex armor plates underneath, like shoulders and certain areas, so that you basically tell the foam where to bend, where not to bend. Did a lot of that stuff over the years.
Mm.
Created this girdle for the suits to keep everything tight to the waist, so that it doesn't buckle like a t-shirt, you know. And then like a lot of floating cores that actually gets embedded into the mold itself. That's floating, so if you cast stuff, you can just take the core out, pop your mechanism in, it fits perfectly. And there's none of this retro cutting, gluing kind of stuff, which tends to rupture the integrity of what you're trying to do, like the art side of things. And so Underworld, I mean not Underworld, the cave was one that probably was most challenging. He used all those techniques. And rather than creating a big frame for him to get into, I decided
Mm-hmm.
to make a suit in two parts. So there was the chest back part, and there was the second upper back part with the mechanism came in. And so I tried to make everything as
Mm-hmm.
one piece as possible.
Okay.
And Brian Steele played the creature. I basically told him, look, we cover you with Vaseline, I'm not Vaseline, with a KY water mix, so you're really kind of slimy. You slip right into the suit instantly. Getting out, it's a little bit more challenging. It's going to take about 5 minutes to get you out. We have to slowly work you out because there isn't zippers, there isn't all this crazy stuff to which is hard to hide, you know.
Right.
We have ways of doing that too, but still, that takes even more time. So we did it that way, and once she popped in, it was this seamless suit, you know. And so it's very challenging for the creature performers sometimes to get out of a suit like this. But you know, he did it, and he's a trooper. And a lot of times, sometimes you sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
comfort for the cosmetics because you know, after all, they both are kind of working together. It's all about the cosmetics on screen, but you try to make it as comfortable as possible for the performers, you know. And vision is very important. Like when I do my creatures, I try to give them as much vision as possible. When I sculpt a creature, first thing I do is I pin the eyes, so I know exactly where it is. When I'm sculpting it, I design it so
Mm-hmm.
that everything is centered around where they can see. Because sometimes it's really hard to hide, you know, eye holes and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember watching the behind the scenes of when you guys were getting the lichens ready for Underworld, and how they were just like their head was actually in the neck, kind of like how you described it. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do as well. Like not necessarily a sacrifice on comfort, right? Because I got everything strapped to my back, kind of harnessed in, like you said. But also just like for the silhouette and the aesthetic of the creature itself, just
Hmm.
trying to give more space and more room for
Yeah.
me to move around in. And that was I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to
Hmm.
talk about the lichen anyway, because that was one of the creatures that inspired my version of Man Bat the most because I've always I always was a fan of the underworld um, movies, but just being going back doing my research, finding out that you helped Patrick Tatopoulos with it, I'm like that makes sense because when you look at the one of the things I noticed about your work, and it's something that I even transferred over to mine. There's like the big traps, the clavicles, the shoulders. There's certain things that I look at and I'm like, okay, I could tell where you really had your input. And it just takes it's just watching all your interviews, watching all your movies, and studying the creatures. Because now it's like, okay, I always wanted to make a liking, but how could I transfer this over to be a version of Man Bat? And then I'm like, okay, well, vampire bats don't have necks at all. you know, so that's a win-win because I don't have much of a neck myself. So if I put my head all the way back there, I'll be
Hmm.
I'll be able to move and do everything I need to do. So that's great, and just being able to see something practical. The fact that Underworld was practical was another reason why it was so big to me because at that time, early 2000s, you started to get CG heavy movies, and I'm like, okay, and then you see underwear, like, whoa, that's really a lichen. That was one of the things that popped out to me. Um, what inspired that design? Because you mentioned The Howling, right? In a movie like The Howling, everybody's super hairy, a little bit of a hunchback, but it's like the likings are something totally different. So if you could give us a little bit of background on like what really inspired that design, because it's
Well,
just
I
like,
mean,
wow.
yeah, I have to
If I
give
had to make a
credit to
werewolf,
Patrick
it would be that.
on that because Patrick actually designed the lichens. That's actually his design. And so yeah. So he
Oh,
brought me in. He did
okay.
a couple sketches, like the different angles of it, and basically he brought me in to build this thing, and we talked about it. And basically, my job was to like take his design and kind of like flesh it out, make it like a wearable suit and whatnot, using all the techniques that I've developed over the
Hmm.
years to make a seamless suit. So yeah, so I mean, definitely that's all Patrick. So I work for him as his art director. Sometimes he'll give me a design and it's very fleshed out, and I'll just
Nice.
kind of like make it. Sometimes he'll give me sketches, some ideas, and give me space to bring a lot of stuff in, like on the cave. He gave me like a basic silhouette, a lot of the texturing, a lot of the stuff, little things. He let me input and throw my own 2 cents into it. Same as the back creature for Batman versus Superman. Patrick had a basic sketch for it. He just kind of gave it to me and said,
Hmm.
"Here, this is kind of what I'm feeling. What do you want to do with this?" And I kind of like played around with it, showed him a bunch of stuff, and he and I worked it out together. So it just kind of depends on the situation, but for sure the lichen is all Patrick. He had that he had designed. He wanted a werewolf that looked like a cat, more cat-like than dog-like, and that was the thing.
Hmm.
And I know it was very controversial for a while because people were saying, "Oh, I look like a werecat." Um, but but like anything else, it finds its audience, right? A lot of people really do love the lichens, a lot of the underworld fans. And so, yeah, I think it found its audience over time, for sure.
Oh yeah. And this was pre social media too, so it's like you had to be
Yeah,
into it to actually have an opinion,
yeah.
at the time. So that's cool. That's cool. And I know you did a little bit of the work on the
Yeah,
Godzilla
it's the
movie
first
with
time I actually
Patrick as
worked
well,
for
right?
Patrick. He hired me to come in to
Okay.
paint, and so I painted the heads of all 12 baby Godzillas. That was my job. I mean, I also painted the fins on
Mm.
the Mama Godzilla, but that was for the suit. That was not used. It was more like for the reference. But yeah, all the baby Godzillas were mostly practical. They had some CG interspersed in there. Those heads were huge, and each one took me about 50 hours to paint, and I painted 12 of those. Yeah, so 10 hours a day for 3 months to paint 12 of those things. It was crazy.
Worth it though,
Yeah.
because that was one of my favorite scenes when they were in Madison Square
hmm
Garden and they started to
Yeah,
act.
that was, I
They
mean, that was a
were
great crew.
beautiful.
I mean, it was such a amazing shot, and there were so many awesome people that I got to work with there. That's the first time I met Patrick, worked with him, and that would be the beginning of our working, friendship. Patrick's an awesome guy, he's still a really good friend. And so, yeah, it was just like, it's no complaints. Those were like the golden days, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Nice. And speaking of painting, there's this one thing that everybody knows on my channel that I always reference, the Steve Wang paint job. And that's one of the things I always keep in mind when I'm trying to paint and really get those details to pop. And I know, I wonder, did you coin that on the Gilman or did you coin that
I
on the
didn't coin that
Predator?
at all. Somebody else coined it. Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't go, hey, I painted, look at this Steve Wang paint job. No, I didn't do that. No, somebody
Well,
coined that.
that that
I don't know who, but it just became a thing. Do you want to hear the origin of the Steve Wang paint job, the style? This was I was
oh
working at
yeah.
Boss Films, and I had just finished uh, the original Predator, which was called Hunter. That thing went to Mexico, and I guess the whole thing kind of turned out to be kind of a disaster, unfortunately. And then I worked on a little commercial called The Collector, which Doug Trumbull, the guy who did the visual effects for the Blade Runner, he directed a Chevy commercial with all these aliens. And Boss Film, Steve Johnson was in charge of the creature shop. So between Jim Cagle and Scream Mad George and Steve Johnson, they designed this really long, tall-looking alien thing. Scream at George came up with this paint job for the alien, but I had to translate it with an airbrush. So I did it like in a way that people like just had a hard time copying. So I ended up painting a bunch of those. And then during that time, the shows were finished, and there was kind of a blank period where I was let go, but I still kind of came out and hung out. So while I was there, I came up with the idea to do a hermit crab creature, like a samurai hermit crab. So I sculpted the thing and molded it while I was at Boss Films. And then one day, just like months later, I was working at Stan Winston's on Monster Squad. And one day, I was looking at the seashell, and I looked at this thing, and it was very translucent. There's all these layers and stuff. And for some reason, I looked at it, and I just said to myself, I know exactly how to paint this. Based on how I paint and how I do things in layers, as I looked at it, it was like, this looks like something I know exactly how to do. So I did it on that shell that won first place, at the Scream at George Halloween contest that Stan Winston, Rick Baker, Dick Smith, and Tom Berman were judges at. It was sort of the face-off of my time, And so after that, Stan was like, okay, paint a Gilman however you want it, and then I did Predators. I paint the Predator however you want it. And so I just kind of did exactly whatever I felt like doing. It's how I painted it. It took a lot of time to design the paint jobs to make sure it's what I want. But then I think after Predator came out, I think people started to coin that Steve Wang paint job because they had not seen a paint job like that before, and that kind of started a whole trend of these kind of amphibious reptilian camouflage kind of look. So I think that's how it started anyway. Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Because I was just trying to recall because it's like people keep bringing it up. I'm like, was it Predator or Gilman? I had to. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah.
Because I got confused on which one.
Yeah. Monster Squad came out after Predator, even though I finished Monster Squad before Predator. So yeah, it was released after Predator, even though I did that first and then did Predator after. But really, the paint job that made it all possible for me to do those paint jobs on Monster Squad and Predator was my hermit crab shell guy. If you look on my page in Instagram, scroll down a little bit, you'll see this kind of hermit crab looking thing with a samurai outfit. That's the thing that got me the opportunity to do whatever I wanted. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm definitely gonna check that out just to see. Well, thank you for letting us know that, because that's one of the things I always keep in mind and try to aspire to when I'm painting. But one of the things that originally started our conversation is the Guardian alien, which you unveiled at Monsterpalooza last year. That is so good. So good. It was it inspired me a lot with my Royal Guard, but I'm glad that I started before I saw yours, because I was so in love with yours that it started to kind of like take over as far as like the aesthetic that I was going for. And plus I appreciated it because the Guardian, being of that Praetorian cast, that's just something that you don't see on film, or even, you see it in the video games or maybe a comic book, but just seeing that brought to life was something that I really appreciated, because that's always been one of my favorite xenomorphs. And I know you did that one in ZBrush.
Yeah, that was one, right? That was a private commission.
3D printed.
Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. Okay. The guy wanted one. I told him it's going to be expensive because, but he was such a huge fan, and he just wanted it. So he said, design me an alien. And, I was like, kind of like, well, okay, sure. Because, I'm a huge H.R. Giger fan. So being, when I had a chance to work on AVP Requiem, I got to like design. I did like the majority of the design on the Predalien. Like the neck down was like basically my design, and then the head was myself with a collaboration with a bunch of different artists to create that head. But mostly, it was just, I wanted to, whenever I worked on anything alien, I just wanted to do an homage to the original, which is, Giger's biomechanical look. I think that look is hands down the most highly imitated and look in our industry. Yeah. And because it's timeless, people are still doing it, and it's just timeless. And it's such a beautiful thing to look at when you do it well. So for me, getting to do like a xenomorph was just a lot of fun, because I'm like, okay, I get to pay homage to Giger, and I can still throw in my 2 cents. And then one thing I did that was kind of fun was there was a lot of like the tips of them look like the ends of the coronavirus protein. So I wanted to kind of add that look into it, just to commemorate that this all happened during the coronavirus outbreak, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
protein spikes. I saw that. Yeah, I remember that. That was dope. That was dope. And it tells the story. That's so good. And I really love what you did with those drone slash face huggers. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I?
Yeah, that was really fun. I thought,
That was
you know,
so
it'd be
cool.
kind of fun to create like a hybrid of like a, you know, the chest burster, you know, like a fully formed alien head with the face huggers, and put them together as one little insect kind of a thing. And basically, they're there to maintain the eggs, you know, just to clean the place, and the housekeepers, you know. So that was that was really fun. Yeah,
The maintenance
and
work.
you know, and to give credit too, the person that actually 3D modeled that for me was Moni Kazamiya. She's one of my my 3D modelers that has worked for me for many years. She actually interned with me years ago, before she even like did digital. So the fact that she's become such an amazing digital artist now, so she sculpted that for me, and we worked together. It was a long road to do that, because there were just so many phases of it, you know, like and detailed design work, and like, you know, like the art direction of that took quite a while, but she did a fantastic job on that. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's one of the things, and I hate to keep bringing up stuff you said, but it just sticks in my mind so much. You know, when I'm working on certain creatures, you know, like an alien, there's so many details. The details have details, and they have more details. And that's after you get done with the silhouette and blocking and everything else. And it just really reminds me of when you say you really gotta love it, because there is some days where it's like, okay, I've been doing I've been painting or detailing this dorsal thing for like 4 hours now. And it's just like that for months and months on end. But, you know, when you take a step back and look at it, you know, because of the foundation that Giger set, it's certain things that in my mind I just have to have. You know, I'll be creative on certain ends. Like some of my body parts for the xenomorph might look a little bit more dinosaur-like. Well, yeah, I love dinosaurs. That's cool. But it's just one of those things where you really got to dig deep some of those days. And I really like that you preach that, because a lot of the times I'm in this garage at 6 a.m. or to almost like 2 a.m. at night, get something to eat, wake up, go to work, do it again, you know? So it's just one of those things where, you know, it's so cool that you're super talented, super passionate, you're a legend. But your hard work and dedication is the one thing that I see is the driving factor. And that's one of the things that I'm happy to have you on, just to kind of show that, because talent is one thing, but being able to work hard consistently day in and day out, and just like seeing how you have like decades and decades worth of work to prove that, that's one of the things.
Yeah, I still love it. I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of clay sculpting lately. My wife and I sculpted this life-size ET for my collectible company, and that's just about finished now, and it's really cute. That was all done in clay, you know, and that was a lot of fun. But I've been doing a lot of ZBrush. You know, these new projects I'm doing that I can't talk about. I'm doing it all in ZBrush myself, because I've learned so much since even last year. And so yeah, it keeps it fresh for me, because for the longest time I was so frustrated with ZBrush, because it was a new program, and you know, there was a huge learning curve, and I just was not getting it until one day, like I think it was like 5 years later or something, that it finally clicked. And when it clicked, I was like, oh my God, okay, I get it now. You know, and I'm still in the process of working out the workflow. There's so many different ways you can use the software, you know, and so many different workflows that you can do. I'm still trying to figure out what is my ideal workflow. So yeah, it's not like clay. You know, clay is just kind of like one-to-one. You want something, you add more clay. You don't something, you just take it out. ZBrush doesn't work like that. You know, ZBrush, there's advantages and disadvantages to whichever way of workflow you choose. So but anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. my point is that, I'm very excited about ZBrush. I've been doing a lot of ZBrush lately, and a lot of my professional work now is done in ZBrush. And so that's another way to keep it fresh for me, as a sculptor, because it's just, I just need new tools. I need new ways of doing things because, unfortunately, I don't know if this is like, hard to hear from somebody like me who's been doing this for so long. I'm trying to inspire a lot of people, but to be completely realistic true to my own self, I know I've hit a ceiling as a sculptor, in terms of, like on a scale of like, this being beginner, this being like the absolute perfection sculptor. I'm somewhere in the middle here, believe it or not. And and I know I can't get any better because I just don't have the ability to get better. And I see sometimes I see stuff being done. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I don't think I can do that. It's just too hard for me, to do. So I've hit a certain plateau in my skill set where I'm like, okay, this is about as good as I'm going to be as a sculptor. Um, I think it's okay because I think I'm pretty good at it, but I'll never reach the level that I want to reach as a sculptor. And so knowing that was kind of discouraging for myself because I'm like, okay, well, I just don't have what it takes to become better. Therefore, I'm getting the ZBrush now. I've discovered all these new superpowers, and ZBrush.
Got a new utility belt.
The software. It gives you the power to undo, the power of symmetry, the power of of alphas. I mean, all these things you can do to help supplement your skill. The power of like infinite zoom down to the pixel. You know what I mean? Like when you're working on a sculpture, it's as big as it is. And if you want to go small, you got to get in there and with a small tool. And with ZBrush, you just zoom in and it's still like working. Like life scale. So these are all like superpowers you get working in digital. And I'm really enjoying the superpower because I feel like with ZBrush, I can create better things than I could in real life using traditional mediums. And I'll never give up traditional mediums. I'm always a sculptor first and foremost, and I always sculpt clay no matter what. But then, again, having superpowers and being able to use it to create more stuff that makes that satisfies me is good because it keeps me going. So I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah,
That's good. That's good. And I always hear you talk about ZBrush now and how you just use it, as a tool because a lot of people like, oh, I just want to do traditional, I want to do this, but it's all a tool used for
it's a tool. ZBrush is a tool. And the reason that it's a tool is that if you don't have any skills, that won't work for you. You can't tell ZBrush to make you an awesome sculpture. Right. You have to make an awesome sculpture with ZBrush. So it's different from like AI. AI where people type in something, they prompt something, and an image comes up. It's doing all the work for you. You just got to give it the idea. Yeah. But with ZBrush, it's very much still a physical tool that an artist has to use to create something. So it doesn't get a whole lot of respect. Still, I think because I think a lot of the things that are being created are so much more complicated and more high fidelity. That's really hard to do with traditional art. And people have this idea that, oh, you just tell the computer, make me a cool sculpture, it'll just do it. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works, So, yeah, it doesn't get the respect that it deserves because there are some incredible artists out there doing digital sculptures, and they're just not getting the recognition that they deserve for their artistry because they are amazing artists.
Yeah. And I'm going to get into it one day. One day I'm going to just block out some time. All right, let's get into ZBrush. I've taught myself plenty of softwares before, but that's something that's just so daunting right now. I can't even think about mainly because, I got all this other stuff. But, yeah, and I think you could say similar, the 3D printing world is something similar. You still got to have some skill to actually use it or know, like, how to finish it up because at the end of the day, I always tell people, like 3D printing is just doing some of the work for you. Still got to sand it, still got to paint it, still got to do all the details. You got to put it together. So it's like they're only doing a little bit of the work, but you still got to be able to be a great artist.
Well, 3D printing is only getting better and better. There's a company in Korea that I work with called Gluck, and their printing is so good that when it comes out of the machine, unless you get in there with the microscope, you can't see the print lines. So they come back to me like finished, and I don't even have to do anything with it. I just throw paint on it, and their machines are big now. They have like a 6-foot by 3-foot machines, a bunch of them actually, so they can print giant life-size parts now. And that's so exciting for me because now I can sculpt something, I'll email to them and say, hey, print this, at this size. A few weeks later, I get it in the mail, and here it is, and it's done, and it's so satisfying. There's not like the molding process, the casting. There's like all this long process that it takes to do all the stuff. Sometimes if I'm making a one-off, I don't have to worry about undercuts. I don't have to worry about anything. If it's for myself, I'll sculpt something crazy, knowing I'm never going to mold it, send it out. It comes back, and I just paint it, and it's done. And people look at it like, wow, how many pieces of molds was that? I'm like, 0. It just printed. Yeah.
Beautiful. But I do want to say this time, just because I know we got a lot. I see some questions came in, so I want to get this time just to do a little Q&A because I know a lot of other artists might have some questions. So let me take a look what's in here. We got Seal Sculpting, ZBrush, okay, we talked on that one. Okay. And yes, Sylv had a couple of questions. So now I do want to give you guys, we got about like 5 or 10 minutes or so just to go over questions. So type those in. I know that we've been having a lot of good conversation, and me and Steve could sit here and talk forever because like he owns a part of my childhood. I do want to give you guys some time to ask him some questions while we got him, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that creatures and monsters never go out of style. That's my main mission for having these Sunday Scary talks. Because you can't be scared of Monday. You're talking about creatures, right? If you make this stuff, you can't be scared of Monday.
Nope. You got to love creature, and the creature will always love you back.
Okay. So Groot in London says, what advice would you give to someone new to cosplay and costume and all of it, really? So new to cosplay, new to costume.
I would say that there's so many ways to go about this, but I think if you're a cosplayer and you want to get a lot of attention, get really good at making costumes, and there's so many great tutorials now on YouTube. People are using EVA foams, and there's like Evil Ted Smith has a great channel. He also sells patterns. You can always buy patterns too and try it out for yourself, and just practice the stuff. So do a lot of research, watch a lot of videos, and then practice your ass off. Make really good costumes, and when you do, you'll get a lot of attention. And if you're not a big attention kind of person, it's just a satisfaction of knowing you can make something really cool. Also is great too. So just practice. Yeah.
Yes. And Evil Ted was one of the main people that I looked at as a source of inspiration on his YouTube. Speaking of Groot in London, because not only does he have templates for specific characters, he has just general templates that you can use too. So, Evil Ted was one of, still today, I save like some of his templates just on my hard drive just so I can go back to them when I need it. But Evil Ted, like, will get you started, and you can just pretty much go from there. He's the man. There we go in the chat.
What's up, Ted? Give you a plug.
Evil Ted plug. We had another one. So Lee's Alex, what's going on, Alex? Do you ever go to any cons as your old creatures?
As my old creatures?
Because I know you do a lot of for some of your old creatures. I think he's saying like Guyver, Predator. Some of
the only two conventions that I really have done regularly is Monsterpalooza in June, and also San Diego Comic-Con. Those are the two that I do regularly. And it's from my collectible company, Elite Creature Collectibles. We have a booth there, and we set up and we show a lot of stuff. And sometimes at Monsterpalooza, they'll do panels, like retrospective panels. We did for Predator a few years ago. Yeah, we did one
I saw that one.
we did one actually
Mm-hmm.
last year for my friend Matt Rose, who passed away. We did like a career retrospective panel for him. And so that's like the best place. You know, we'll do like that kind of stuff. I think they went for Monster Squad as well. When we had with the cast and then some of the people that
Nice.
made the creatures there on set with the director, you know, Fred Decker. So we do panel like that once in a while. It just depends on whether or not, you know, what the occasion is and whether or not the organizer like feels like, hey, it'd be great to do a panel like this or something. So Comic Con, not so much. Comic Con, I just go there's like my vacation. I set up the booth at Toynami's booth. You know, we have the ECC section, and then I set it up, and I just go, and my wife and I just run around with our dogs, and we go on vacation. So yeah. So that's
Oh
fun.
yeah. Speaking of that, the Jurassic Park
Hmm.
T-Rex you guys just did. I was sitting there. I was like, if I buy this, my wife is going to be pissed. But it's such a it was just. I'm going to if it's still available for purchase, probably for my birthday or like a gift to myself. I'm definitely gonna try. I know you only got
Yeah,
so many of them
the way
made,
that works,
but
the collectible thing way it works for us is that when we do a pre-sale, we only make as many as they're ordered, and after that they close. So and then I think like Toynami they'll get a few
okay,
extra ones, whatever. So if you really want to get one, contact Cinema Kit right away. See if they have an extra one you can get because otherwise they become
okay,
hard to get, and then you have to wait for aftermarket if somebody wants to sell theirs or something like that. It's the whole collectible market is it's really tricky. Like it's you know I'm still learning how that works and stuff, but it's like it's all about the value of collecting. So a lot of times you know they sell out instantly, and then to try to find one later is really tough. Like people come up to me and says, "Oh man, can I get this
yeah.
thing you did like 4 years ago?" And I'm like, "Man, I can't even get one." You know, it's yeah.
I have to
Well,
remake
unfortunately,
it.
we can't because that's another thing
Yeah,
about collectors market. Like, you know, the value depends on how rare it is. So once the edition closes, that's all you can make. And we can't make any more because that would devalue the investment of the collectors. So we very much respect that, and we don't ever break that
yep,
rule.
yep.
So yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so
That's good
if you want
too.
one, I would
Well,
contact
we got time.
cinemakit.com. You know, tell them you're my friend. Tell them, see, you know, see if he can hook you up if he has an extra
Okay,
one. And your wife should be
I'll
happy for you
definitely
because
keep
if
that in
you're
mind.
happy, she's happy. Yeah,
This is very true, and she knows. You know,
exactly.
my last name is Rex
Right?
for a
You
reason.
gotta have a
So if I buy
Rex
a
in the
T
house,
Rex,
right? Another Rex. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we
another
have such a
Rex.
beautiful understanding of each other. You know, like we do what makes us happy. If I want something, I get it. If she wants something, she gets it. Do you know what we give each other for our birthdays and anniversaries? We give each other lightsabers. Literally, my wife and I, we give
Nice.
each other
I
lightsabers
love that.
for you know, like we have all these lightsabers on the wall. You know, for my birthday, she got me the Kylo Ren lightsaber. You know, and then for our anniversary, I got her the Ahsoka Tano dual saber. You know, that does all the sound and the crazy stuff. You know, and her birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks. You know, it's like I'm just like, okay, which one do you want? But it's great. You could be, you know, you
Okay.
could be a kid.
Okay.
It's wonderful to be able to share that love of something, same thing with your wife. You know.
Oh yeah. And she started
Mhm.
getting me toys for Christmas,
Yeah.
and she just saw my face light up. And ever since then, she's just been getting me like piles of like all my favorite action figures and stuff for Christmas and my birthday. You know,
Yeah.
I'm at the end of the day, I'm just a big kid. I'm like
And you're gonna, you
35
know
going
what? And
on 9.
you're gonna be a
Well,
big kid
34
for the
going
rest
on
of your
9.
life. You know. I'm still a big kid. Look at me. I'm gray
Oh
hair.
yeah.
I'm getting up there. Yeah. You know, getting up there, and it's like still a kid. I still love what I do. You know, I'm still excited to do what I do, and I don't think it's ever gonna change. So, yeah.
Oh no. And we got one more question we can get to because I know you have a busy day and I do too. So little ox, I'm trying to make realistic demon wings. Like realistic bat wings with veins with a bit of transparency in them. I'm having a hard time with that. What have I with what I've experimented with. So basically, she wants to make
Hmm.
realistic demon-like bat wings. How would you go about that? I tried it a little bit with 2 millimeter EVA foam. Did a good job, but I want to hear from you as well because that's
Well,
something
wings
that's
are a
pretty
pain in the
cool.
ass, first and foremost, just so that we're all on the same page. I've done wings a lot of different ways in
Yes.
the past, and I think the most successful one that I've done is probably from the cave. And that whole
Okay.
thing was such an elaborate process. I had to have a dedicated team just making wings. And I don't know if I want to bog you down with all the complexities of it, but basically, I started out. I painted a wing, like a life-size wing. All the membranes, all the veins are supposed to go, and all that kind of stuff. And I printed them in panels, right? Like the wing had three sections and three panels. This is just a membrane I'm talking about. And I found this
Mm-hmm.
spandex pantyhose material that's kind of flesh tone. It's thicker than pantyhose, but not as thick as spandex, and you can see through it. And we would pin these things under the frame, and then paint all the stuff first, the paint job. And then I found this material called Cleartex, which is a clear latex. You can buy it from a place in New York. I don't remember the name of the company. It's been a while, but look up Cleartex. You can probably find it. And we went in there with Q-tips, and
Okay.
I Q-tipped all the painted areas, leaving like all the panels were latex, like Cleartex, but all the veins that connected the sections were not covered at all. So essentially, it's not like covering the whole thing with latex. Then you got a piece of rubber that's really heavy and non-stretchy. This thing is designed in a way that you can take this and stretch it out like this, and it comes right back again. So you get a lot of flexibility. And then from there, I took
Mm-hmm.
different gauges of hot glue, and I did the big veins through with the hot glue, and then small veins with the hot glue, and then went in there carefully painted them, and blended them into the paint job. And then once that's all done, all these panels were then glued into the actual frame of the wings, the bones inside, and then we're covered with the sculpted skin
Mm.
carefully. So once that's all done, you have a realistic looking wing. It can flex, and you can see through it, and it doesn't fold like a piece of cloth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we did it. Yeah, that's how we did it on
Yep.
on the cave. And it would take a while to develop that look because I know some people have just grabbed like pantyhose, or spandex and just painted that, and that's okay. I've done that in the past. And then I've done variations of covering with latex and covering with to make a skin for it. But I found that the way we did the cave was probably the best, most effective way because it looked quite realistic. You can put your hand right through it. You can see your hand right through the wings and stuff. It looks like membrane. Yeah, but yet it had the flex. You start out with a smaller
Nice.
shape, so when you stretch it out, it'll stretch out and it'll come back. So it's not like a hanging piece of curtain. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Because that
Hmm.
in that way, it's a real wing. It just
Yeah.
expands like a real bat wing would. That's cool to hear because after building some myself, kudos to the hot glue.
Hmm.
Hot glue for veins always works. But definitely, I'm a build man bat another pair of wings, and I might go that route just to see what I could do with
Yeah.
that same concept. So, little Ox, I hope that helped you out, and that also helped me too because building those wings was not fun in a small Chicago 3 bedroom apartment. It was basically me being on outside of the apartment trying to construct some wings out of PVC and all that.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day. I definitely want to thank you again for taking the time to spend this time with one of your fans, one of your pupils. um, yeah, I just really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully this gives the audience just a little bit more transparency to see that hey, artists are artists. Whether it's somebody like me that comes from the world of cosplay, who's just getting into TV and film, to somebody like yourself that's pretty much, I'll just call it what it is. You're a legend, a living legend when it comes to creature work, your film work that you did, and we're all the same at the end of the day. We're just
Yep.
big kids. We like to have fun. But the hard work and dedication is one of the things that I always preach because of my learnings from you. And I really thank you for that. I thank you for all the inspiration with the creature stuff and the artistic stuff, but that dedication and drive, that that's
Well,
what I get a
thank you
lot
for
from
the
you.
kind word. Yeah,
So
thank you.
much
Thank you.
love, much love. Um, Also, we're closing out. Do you have any
Yeah, the
conventions
next one
coming up or anything
coming up
to
is
announce?
Monsterpalooza in Pasadena, California. That's in, I think, the first week of June, like June 3rd or something. I got another big booth there for
Okay.
Elite Creature collectibles. I'll probably be selling my little tchotchkes, my little sculptures. That's like my happy place. I get to make these things I really love, especially like, old movie monsters and stuff that inspired me. And I sell like resin castings to people. Yeah, so I'll be there first week of June. Anybody wants to stop by, come by and say hi. Yeah. And I'd be happy.
Nice.
If you have questions, you have, technical questions or just whatever, hit me up. I'm happy to explain stuff to you, whatever I can. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. And as you already know with me, my convention is C2E2 coming up March 31st to April 2nd. So I'll be unveiling the new Empress Alien, which is the evolved version of the Queen. And I'm also going to have some creatures from the Royal Guard wave and a couple other new surprises that I don't want to spoil just yet. And hopefully we'll see some more of that the Unkillables line that you
Yeah,
introduced last year. I really like that. I hope he has
yeah,
some
yeah.
buddies that's coming
I
in.
have a couple other ideas for the next evolution of Unkillables. So, yeah, just a matter of I hope it'll do well enough for me to continue the series because it's just a lot of fun.
Nice. Okay, cool, cool. Well, I'm gonna take advantage of this beautiful day here in Chicago. I will be in touch with you as always. You know I'm not a stranger. I definitely got to send you a shirt too to make sure you got the
Cool.
Embracing the Monster shirt. So I'll DM you and get your
Awesome.
info so I can take
Thank you.
care of
Well,
you.
thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah.
No
Okay.
problem.
Enjoy your
All right,
Sunday.
y'all.
Yep.
We got a chance to talk and
Thank everyone
see.
for
If y'all
stopping
have
by.
any
Yeah.
questions, let us know.
Okay.
Yep. Hit us up. We will respond to you. We're regular artists, regular people. So
Yep.
y'all have fun. Keep on making. Peace.